We all know what it's like to know somebody who's very selfish and wants everything for himself or herself. This story, The Man Who Owned the Earth, is about that very kind of a person. A poor man once went to a wizard and said, "Make me the richest man in the earth." So the wizard gave him a ball of clay and 3 potions and said, "You must use these very carefully, for they are very, very strong magic. The first is very powerful, but if you were to pour it all onto the ball of magic clay, all the gold in the world would be yours. The second is even more powerful, for if you were to pour all that on the ball of clay, all the silver in the world would be yours. But the third is most powerful of all, for if you poured that onto the clay, all the wood in the world would be yours." The man was very pleased and said, "If I had all the gold there is, I wouldn't need wood or silver. I would own the earth." "Indeed you would," replied the wizard. "But that must never be. 1 drop of each potion will make you rich beyond your wildest dreams. The rest you must bring back to me, or you will end your days as poor as you are now." Well, the man went home, and immediately he opened the first potion and let a drop fall onto the ball of magic clay. And a soldier looked in at the window and then emptied a huge sackful of gold in the room. It was more wealth than the poor man had ever imagined was possible. But even so, before he put the stopper back on the potion, he couldn't resist letting just 1 more drop fall onto the ball of magic clay. The clay quivered in his hand, and then suddenly everything in the house turned to gold. The tables, the chairs, the bed, the wardrobe, the cups, the plates and knives and forks, the old iron grate, the bucket by the door, even the door itself turned to gold. Then the man was overcome with greed. "All the gold in the world can be mine," he cried, and he poured all the remaining potion onto the ball of magic clay. Immediately, the air was filled with the whirring of thousands of wings, and the sky became black with every conceivable shape and size of bird, all flying towards his house. And each bird carried in its beak a little bag of gold. One by one they flew over the house, and one by one they dropped the bag of gold until a huge mountain was formed. Then the birds flew off, and the sky became light again, and the noise of the wings subsided. The man looked out of his window at the golden mountain outside and could hardly believe his eyes. "Now I am, without doubt, the richest man in the world," he said. Then he built himself a palace and lived like a prince. It was not long, however, before he heard a banging at his doors, and he went and found 100 ragged men there. "Who are you?" he cried. "Once we were all kings," they replied, "but since you have taken all the gold there is in the world, we have lost our kingdoms, and now we go around on foot begging for our food." "I'm sorry to hear that," said the man, and he gave them each 1 gold piece and then turned them out to beg their way again. Then the man thought to himself, "What if all those kings should try to steal my gold? I had better get some silver, for then I could pay 100 soldiers to guard my gold." So he took the second potion the wizard had given him and let a drop fall onto the ball of magic clay, and sure enough, the floors of his palace all turned to silver. Then he let another drop fall, and a silver ball the size of 6 houses rolled down the road and came to rest in the palace gardens. Then he was overcome with greed to see what all the silver in the world looked like, and he took the potion and poured it all onto the ball of clay. And there was a terrible sound like thunder, and the sky grew black, and it started to rain silver pieces. They fell onto roofs and chimney pots, and then into the gutters, and formed little streams of silver. And all the streams joined into one great river that flowed down into his palace gardens, and there formed a huge lake of silver. And he took some of the silver and hired 100 soldiers to guard his gold. But before long, he heard a banging on his doors, and he went and found 1,000 ragged men there. "Who are you?" he cried. "Once we were all rich merchants," said the men, "but since you have taken all the silver in the world, we have nothing to buy and sell with, and we are ruined, as you can see." "I'm sorry for you," said the man, "but there is nothing I can do for so many." And he turned them out of the palace to beg their way in the world. Then the madman said to himself, "I need to build a chest to hold all that silver and gold. It will be so large that I shall need a lot of wood. I shall need that third potion after all." So he took the third potion and poured it all onto the ball of magic clay, and suddenly there was the rushing sound of 1,000,000 leaves rustling in the wind, and he looked up, and there was a forest in the sky coming up from the west. And from the south came another, and from the north and the east as well. And they blotted out the whole sky, and their roots hung down over the earth. At this, all the people looked up and cried, "What has happened to the day?" And when they found they had no wood to build their homes, no wood to burn on their fires, and no wood for chairs or tables, or to make their tools, they all rose up together. And together they beat down the doors of the palace and took back everything. And the richest man in the world was as poor as he had been before. He had nothing left. And that's what happens when your eyes are bigger than your stomach, or when you're so selfish that you don't see anybody else's need at all.